Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following everything happening with the latest gaming hardware. I'm Damon Hatfield. This week I'm joined by Jada Griffin, IGN's community lead. Welcome back.
Hey Damon, glad to be back.
And Mark Medina from Camp Goose joins us this week.
That's true. I'm the true Game Scoop representative here.
Yep, that's true. And our topic this week is our jumping off point was the fact that today, Wednesday of this week, the 26th, we learned that both highly anticipated games, Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophet, and The Witcher 4, we should not expect either of those games before 2027. So still a couple years away for both of those, which puts them in the territory that they could very well be PlayStation 6 games. We know the Xbox is targeting 2027 for its next gen hardware, and you wouldn't think PlayStation would want to get left too far behind by the competition. So, in the spirit of this, I have a long list of games that are currently in development that don't have any sort of release window. I'm gonna present these to both Jada and Mark, and they will determine whether they think these are still current gen games or if they're coming to PlayStation 6. Which of course doesn't mean they couldn't be cross gen games, right? They could come to both PS6 and PS5. But speaking of Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophet, not before 2027. Do you think that sounds like a PlayStation 6 game, Jada?
Oh man, that's a tough one because obviously Naughty Dog has not really released a whole lot this PS5 generation outside of remasters. So it'd be kind of strange to see them go the entire generation without having a big AAA release, let alone a new IP that they've dropped. Naughty Dog has been really good about releasing new IPs just about every console generation of PlayStation. Crash PS1, Jack and Daxter PS2, PS3 brought Uncharted and Last of Us. PS4, we didn't really get a new one either. So that would be 2 generations of no new franchises. So I really hope this is a PS5 one, but honestly, at this point, it could go either way for me.
Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because I agree with Jada that it would be very strange. Like Naughty Dog and, they really are one of the premier studios for PlayStation. Yeah, it would be super strange to see them go an entire generation without releasing something new. It's worth keeping in mind that they were going to release the Last of Us multiplayer game that got canceled. Yeah. So it's not entirely out of the possibility that would have been their big PS5 game, and then with Intergalactic targeting PlayStation 6, I do think it is in the realm of possibility that this is a PS5 game still. Last of Us Part 2, gorgeous game, came out just a few months before PlayStation 5, and they were completely fine with releasing it. They could have delayed that and made it a PS6 game, but of course we also know that Sony has a habit right now of double dipping. We're about to get the the remaster and all that stuff for PC and all that, so it's really hard to say. I personally think that they will try to target PS5, because by the time this game comes out, let's say mid 2027, let's say PS6 is late 2027, that would give them a very big install base to release this very expensive game too. So I believe that they're going to try for a tail end release of the PS5.
Well, sticking with PlayStation first-party games, what about Wolverine? Where is Wolverine?
I think Wolverine's next year.
You think so? You think it's 2026?
I do. Yeah, I do think it is next year.
Insomniac has the track record to do something like that, and we haven't seen anything since that very first teaser. Obviously, we've talked about it here on Next Gen Console Watch. We've talked about it on Beyond. That obviously there's been some shakeups and changes at Insomniac, the leaks and our hacks and all that type of such. So, but I agree with Mark. I don't know if 2026 is the targeted release date, but I do think Wolverine is still a PS5 title. I also really just hope it in my bones and claws and adamantium skeleton that I've got as well. I really hope that it's PS5.
They have this new console that they just released a few months ago with the PS5 Pro, and they've yet to really support it from a first party perspective yet. So I have to assume that things like Wolverine, and we already know that Ghost of Yotei is that, you know, those are games that obviously will release on base PS5, but really going to be designed to show off the power of the PS5 Pro. And so, you know, they are still going to want to sell pros over the next few years. And so that's why I think Wolverine is probably next year on a PS5. But speaking of Insomniac, I do believe that Spider-Man 3 was probably a PS6 game. I think by the time they're done with Wolverine and they get around to Spider-Man 3, I think that will be it, at best cross-gen like Miles Morales, or full-on PS6. Probably cross-gen though.
Yeah, I think they are in that same boat of wanting to capitalize on massive install bases, like your point on Intergalactic. That was what they would want to do for Spider-Man 3. Whenever that gets announced / like shown off.
Yeah. Well, not a first-party game, but a PlayStation console exclusive. What about the third part of the Final Fantasy VII remake?
So Square has basically already confirmed that this one is going to be like kind of a cross-generation game, because they noticed a noticeable dip in sales for Rebirth compared to Remake, because making it a PS5 exclusive meant that they lost out on that massive PS4 install base. And you already get a drop off when it comes to massive RPG sequels, because people are like, do I need to play the first part to play this one to understand it? And that discourages people. There's a lot of things that as you get further and further into a trilogy, especially of games that are, it's also a remake of a 20 plus, almost 20-year-old game now at this point. There's no way this launches to be just PS6. I definitely think they're going to use PS6 as a base and kind of scale down for PS5, which who even knows what that's going to look like at this point in time with tech. But Square is very precious about Final Fantasy VII, and one of the things they cited for pushing Rebirth purely to PS5 was because of tech issues and limitations with the PS4. So I imagine they're going to want to push the envelope with Remake Part 3 because there's high expectations from their hardcore fan base. But I do think it still gets it's definitely going to get a PS5 launch as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, we mentioned The Witcher 4 at the top of the show. Not before 2027. CD Projekt Red was right here at the start of this console generation with Cyberpunk, and then it had to spend a lot of time, you know, sort of improving Cyberpunk and getting it to the place it is today, which is a great spot. Can they get another new game out this generation before PS6?
No. If they're, I know that they've scaled up a bit, but if they're doing the, you know, kind of Bethesda switching between Witcher and Cyberpunk, you know how Bethesda does Fallout and Elder Scrolls. We also know that a Witcher 1 remake is coming. No, I 100% think that Cyberpunk is. Man, it might even be too bold to say that that's like a PS7 game. Like, I don't think Cyberpunk 2 is even like I think it is a logo right now for them. If even I don't think I don't think development even starts for that game until a few years into the PS6 life cycle. Like maybe some early design ideas, but I do believe that they are all in on Witcher 4 right now, which is, as we know, a long ways out. So no, Cyberpunk 2077 2, absolutely not a PS5 game.
But Witcher 4?
Yeah.
Witcher 4 is that's definitely PS6, hands down. Yeah. I think they learned from their mistakes with Cyberpunk trying to launch cross-platform and it being a mess. And I don't think the gamers and their fans are going to forget about that mishap for a very long time. And so they're just going to try and avoid that PR nightmare of, hey, we're doing it again, cross-platform or cross-generation launch. And because people will immediately go like, oh, like Cyberpunk. So I shouldn't buy this game until like 8 months from now.
Yeah. Well, because if you'll remember, like, not only were the PS4 and Xbox One versions of Cyberpunk not good, but they also abandoned them very quickly. When Cyberpunk 2.0 came out, they're like, this is just not on the old consoles. And then, as we know, Phantom Liberty just never came to the old consoles, which was like kind of a one-off when it comes to, you know, development nowadays, where where like we no longer support the old console. Like that doesn't happen a ton, but it definitely like Elden Ring, you know, yeah, it stuck around on the old gens, right? But it's like, Cyberpunk was like, nope, we can't make it work. So I agree with Jada there. I do not believe that they are going to try to do cross-gen again.
Well, Mark mentioned Elder Scrolls 6. You know, it's an Xbox property, but it'll definitely come to PlayStation
For sure.
Everything else is, so
it's got to be a PS6 game, right?
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah.
You know, it has been a long time coming.
When you look at their release windows, so Skyrim in 2011, Fallout 4 in 2015, and then we got Starfield in 2023. So I have to assume, because we still don't know anything about Elder Scrolls 6, that this is probably, I think it's easily a 2028, 2029 game.
Yep. This is exactly where I have it pegged on my calendar. I've got my calendar already up for 2028, 2029 for this one.
Was it 2017 or 18 that it was revealed? With that
I want to say
saw?
2018.
Okay, so 10 years from announcement to release, possibly.
Yep, it is. We talked about this before on Scoop. It is. Skyrim was as old as that trailer is now when you compare it to today, right? Like that trailer was. Yeah, Skyrim was 7 years old when that trailer was, and now that trailer is 7 years old. So, them talking about, we know that the PlayStation 5 Starfield port is almost assuredly in the works. Them talking about this year being a big year for Starfield. We don't know what else that means. It shows that they are still working on Starfield. They are absolutely working on Elder Scrolls 6, but with no tangible like updates. I think we're a ways out.
BioWare just got Dragon Age Veilguard out last year, and now they've moved on to the next Mass Effect. But I think I would anticipate that to be a PS6 game.
Yeah.
Whatever the next Mass Effect is.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I think Mass Effect, I think they could target this console generation just again because of that massive install base. Obviously, Dragon Age reviewed well, but I don't believe it sold as well as
I mean, it's already on
EA
PlayStation Plus, so
EA and BioWare, I don't think we're very happy with the sales or weren't happy with what they were hoping the sales would be for Dragon Age. And so I don't see them pushing to PS6 and abandoning the massive PS5 install base. Granted, there'll be Xbox versions as well, so maybe, and Xbox is pretty good about their cross-generation and everything like that, so maybe it's not too big a deal if they do go PS6 and they do Xbox and whatever Xbox is, able to run it at that point in time. But I think Mass Effect actually does stick to this console generation. As crazy as that sounds, I think it does.
Yeah, I mean, I once again look at dev times, right? Like, Andromeda came out in 2017, and then now, and then they finally released Veilguard in 2024, and so it's weird to think how close PlayStation 6 probably is, right? And so I do kind of have my cap on where it's like they just released a game last year, so install base aside, are they even able to get a new game out on this same generation? It really depends on how far Mass Effect 5 or whatever it's going to be called is in development.
It'll be Andromeda 2.
Oh, yay!
More drama.
Yeah. So Kojima is going to deliver Death Stranding 2 just a few months in June. And then we also know he has this OD project for Xbox. But then there's Fizzant, which is he is partnered with Sony for that, and even Sony Pictures is going to have some sort of mixed media parts to it. So I would anticipate that to be a PlayStation 6 game, Fizzant.
Yeah,
1000%.
Or a PS7 game.
Like
I was gonna say it could push another generation.
Yeah, with Death Stranding 2 hitting this year, so again that's another 7-year development cycle from Death Stranding 1, and then looking at the fact that he does need to work on Overdose or OD. I have to assume, especially because it's like you're saying, like Fizzant is not, it's a stealth game. It's supposed to be kind of, Metal Gear-esque, but it seems like they're building more than just a game here. This is a multimedia experience. It seems like it's like something that Kojima's always wanted to do, blend games and movies. So yeah, absolutely. I think this one is quite a ways out.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm hoping it's something like Quantum Break. I think that could be cool. Quantum Break was very experimental with its like, hey, instead of a cutscene, we're not going to give you 20 minutes of a television show.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if that's what Kojima's leaning into, but that stuff takes time.
Yeah, for sure.
This is an interesting one. Who remembers DokeV?
I do.
Yeah, announced a long time ago.
DokeV.
So I don't know what's going on with that game. I think it had that really nice looking trailer, and then that was kind of it, right?
Yeah, we haven't heard anything from DokeV for so long. And I mean, this game looks gorgeous. The trailer looked gorgeous. Obviously, it's a vertical slice, kind of a trailer put together for its announcement. I could see this one surprising us with the very tail end of PS5 lifespan for it. Just because this trailer was what, 2022?
I don't even remember. Yeah, long time.
But yeah, it's been 3 years roughly since this trailer, based on my memory, and so I could see it making the tail end of PS5. It could also be one of those things where it's not uncommon for even after the next generation of console launches that we still get games that are locked to the previous console, and then they eventually do an updated, here's the PS6 version, updated, and you can upgrade for $10, or here you get a free upgrade for owning it depending on the studio. So I think that's kind of the case with DokeV.
Yeah, this trailer was 2021, and there have been no updates since then. So maybe this game is just lost in development hell. Who knows?
Yeah.
So obviously, Assassin's Creed Shadows is out now. I believe the next one is supposed to be Hexe.
Yeah.
The witchy one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, last gen they got 3 giant Assassin's Creed RPGs out with Odyssey, first Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. They're all on PS4. Can they manage another one this gen before PlayStation 6?
I hope they don't.
Yeah.
I say that because I think they are getting to that point of, despite Shadows doing really well, I think they're starting to get to that fatigue of the RPG Assassin's Creeds in the larger install base. And I think also the fatigue, they're realizing that how fatigued some fans are with seeing Assassin's Creed so often. I would much rather them shelve Hex until mid-generation PS6, if need be, to work on some of their other IPs that they've announced and talked about but haven't produced in a while, like a Prince of Persia or a Splinter Cell.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we could just spend a whole chapter on Ubisoft games. Yeah, the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake and the Splinter Cell remake. I mean, a better question is, forget are those PS5 or PS6 games? The question is, will these games ever come out? Are they going to be Beyond Good and Evil 2? These things.
Prince of Persia, I'm not sure. Beyond Good and Evil 2. Probably not. I don't know about that one. I will say I do think Hex could be probably not next year, but Ubisoft they have multiple developers, right? So this isn't a thing where they're stuck. So it's like while Montreal is working on both, they have all these suite of developers that work on all the games, and Montreal is the one heading up Hex. So I think Hex could be a Valhalla situation where it comes out fall 2027 and is for PS5 and PS6.
Yeah, that would make sense. What about the next BioShock? We know that's been in development for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know when that's coming around. It becomes this thing where I'm like, I'm trying to think, is this a PS5 or a PS6 game? But now we're wading into territory where I'm like, is this game ever going to be a thing? Like something like not to pull away from BioShock, but like something like Capcom's Pragmata. Like, where is this game? That was in the PS5 release, and it just keeps getting delayed over and over. And so it hits this point where you're like, is this a PS6 game or is this a game at all? Is it ever going to be a thing?
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned Quantum Break, Remedy. Yeah. What's their next game? Is it the multiplayer
FBC
cooperative
Firebreak?
game? That's the one.
Yeah.
And then
Control.
So you think that'll be this gen and then Control 2 next gen?
I would be fine with Control 2 being next gen. Yeah, FBC is a little weird. It's, it's like a kind of a spin-off-y type of thing. But Control did not run the greatest on PS4. And I didn't play the game until it came out with the more definitive PS5 version, and the game is gorgeous, one of the prettiest games in existence. And Remedy, Alan Wake 2 runs really, really good on PS5. So if they're sticking with that and happy with that graphical fidelity, which they should, Alan Wake 2 is incredible looking, then they would probably be fine with a PS5 release. But I wouldn't be sad if they started working on the game to make it specifically for a PS6.
I see it. I think we could get Control 2 as a PS5 game, mostly because I think a lot of the groundwork is kind of built for Control. They've already built the oldest house. Obviously, that's going to change, and there's going to be all sorts of different crazy areas to explore. Yeah, it's going to be an even older house by then. But I think a lot of that's kind of done. It also depends on what they're going to do tech-wise with it, because there's a lot going on under the hood in Control. So, and Remedy is very particular and meticulous with their mechanics in their games, so I think what's really gonna determine if it makes PS5 or pushes it into PS6 is going to be dependent on what vision they have for progressing through the world this time.
Yeah, it's a very physics-based game, as we're seeing on screen, and so it's like it really depends, because it's like you look at Control, and while gorgeous, it's like this giant open kind of empty room with like a few things you can throw. Obviously these like desks and stuff get crazy, but it's like if they want to like really populate these areas and all of a sudden everything becomes movable and throwable and breakable, then I could see it looking the same as Control 1 Ultimate Edition, like graphically, but them really like pushing how far those physics go.
Now you can rip like full pillars out of the building and such to throw at people. So yeah.
Okay, here's an interesting one to consider: the sequel to Hogwarts Legacy, which has just been announced to be in development, hasn't been officially revealed. There's no assets or trailer or anything. However, Warner Brothers is in rough shape, and like a sequel to Hogwarts Legacy is pretty much a sure bet to be a success. It's the only game to outsell Call of Duty in 14 years or something like that. So, and I think they've said it is one of their biggest priorities at WB. So I wouldn't be surprised if they really try to fast track that and get it out this gen. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, with the rumor, I don't know if it's confirmed, but the rumors that Rocksteady has almost become like a support studio for Avalanche to become, to help get this game out the door. It's like Jada mentioned with Control. A Hogwarts Legacy is a new IP in the sense of like not the Harry Potter IP, but a new type of game that they had to build kind of from scratch. But now that they've built it and built wand combat and spells and stuff like that, it shouldn't, as I say as someone who knows nothing about game development, it shouldn't be too much of a task to then make a sequel to this. This game was old gen and new gen, but with the upcoming release of the HBO show, you would think that it would be mutually beneficial to make sure that this game is fast-tracked to try to release at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, to my point that Mark made about my point, yes. It does get a little bit easier when you already have the assets built for locations and characters and abilities and effects that are already built, that things that aren't going to change. It's like a Call of Duty game where they don't need to model the guns every single year. If that gun is going to be back in Call of Duty, they may tweak and update it, but that's a lot easier than building it from scratch. So, and it's less time consuming. And yeah, seeing as how this has been one of the few games that has been successful for WB in a while, I see them throwing as much resources and money to get a second release out ASAP for them.
Yeah. Okay, here's a couple more from Square Enix that have been a long time coming: Dragon Quest 12 and Kingdom Hearts 4.
Yeah.
Dragon Quest 12, I think, is a PS5 title. I think we definitely see that this generation. just because it's been a while since Dragon Quest 11, and obviously we got the 2.5 remix. I can't even keep track of them anymore. I think it's what is it, 2 and 3 they did the remaster for, if I remember
I am
correctly.
not a Dragon Quest guy.
Yeah. And so that I think 12 we do see this generation, because it's been a while since they've announced it, and it was though all we have currently is still just the logo. But I do think that one makes PS5. Kingdom Hearts, though, no way, that's PS5. That is going to be PS6. They're going to go as big as possible with Kingdom Hearts, and they're going to want every little piece of power that they can squeeze into that for that big culmination. So
Yeah,
I think that's PS6.
I think they've already said that like Kingdom Hearts 4 is probably not the end of the franchise as a whole or the property, but it is the end of the like Sora saga, you know? But man, it just gets so frustrating because these games just get announced so early. Nothing about the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer was real. It's all just like, this is the game we want to make, and we're going to disappear for 10 years and make it. And you're just like, come on, man. But yeah, I don't have any hopes that this game is even in the roaring 20s. This is probably somewhere in the 30s.
You got me with the roaring 20s.
How are we not just back? We all need to put on some top hats and some coats and good.
Yeah, for sure. What about the follow-up to No Man's Sky? Light No Fire. Massive multiplayer game on a planet the size of Earth.
Freaking Sean Murray. Don't overpromise with No Man's Sky. He's like, I'm creating Earth in a game.
Yeah.
Come on, man. No, I think Light No Fire's probably farther along than we think. This trailer is pretty old now at this point. I think we see Light No Fire next year.
I agree. I maybe not next year, but at latest early 2027, I think, for this one. And I say that mostly because, as somebody who's been venturing back into No Man's Sky over the last year or so, they're bringing a lot of updates to No Man's Sky, which tells me that they are prototyping these things for Light No Fire, and then they're testing them live in No Man's Sky. They're updating all the graphics. They're making these bigger planets. They're adding extra features and deeper oceans in these planets you can go into. And that just sounds like something that they want to do for this Earth-sized planet that they're doing in Light No Fire. So I agree with Mark. I think this one is at latest early 2027, but it is definitely a PS5 title.
Yeah. Now, of course, Bungie is now owned by Sony, PlayStation, and they've got Marathon. A new Marathon coming, one of the earliest games Bungie ever developed. But we don't know what's going on with it.
Yeah, that one's a bit of a mystery. I think it's probably that's going to be one of those games where they just kind of drop it. Like because it's like multiplayer kind of thing. Like I think they're just going to kind of drop it somewhere. I don't think that they plan on this being as big as Destiny or anything like that. So I honestly haven't given this one much thought about where to come. But I think they would be. Multiplayer games need to be cross-gen. They need the player base. So if they are hard at work on this one and it has and its releases on the horizon, then I think they'll try to at least do both.
Because of what you said, Mark, about multiplayers needing that fan base, then it's necessary in this day and age. We see so many multiplayer, especially shooters, have come out over the last 12 months and just died after being up for a couple months. So this one, if this one doesn't drop on PS5, it's going to face probably a similar fate if they try to go push to PS6 exclusivity.
Yeah, I mean
PC
is probably their biggest target for this one, to be honest with you.
Okay, Okami 2, which was just revealed at the Game Awards in December. I think that's a long ways off. I think that's definitely a PlayStation 6 game.
Probably a long ways off. Yep.
Yeah. And then there's the Star Wars trilogy, the next Star Wars Jedi game from Respawn, which is in development. Fallen Order was a PS4 game. Survivor was a PS5 game. So I would expect the next one to be PS6.
A PS5 game that then
Then
months and
back.
months later got back ported, which was interesting. And so yeah, I think that their commitment to that was like really like a thing, right? Like I mean that shows that they're trying to hit a bigger base, and so I think they have a commitment to I mean it's all money. I don't say I'm not saying they're trying to satiate a player base, but I do think that they have a commitment to reaching as many people as they can. So I do believe that this is probably a cross-gen at best. Yeah.
Yeah, hands down, cross-gen.
There's the Star Wars XCOM game, meaning it's being made by former XCOM developers. A strategy game.
Yeah. Yeah, for Axis. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're gonna hear about this one soon. I feel like that one's. I feel like we're gonna hear about it soon. Obviously, again, XCOM for Axis, they're big on PC, but it is Star Wars, so I think we'll hear about that one soon. I think that could be a PS5 game.
And what of Star Wars Eclipse from Quantic Dream?
Yeah,
still nothing but a reveal trailer.
Yeah,
that's PS6. That's PS6 if we see it. I mean, I think they didn't recently. I think they recently like doubled down. Like it's still in development, or was that KOTOR? There's so many Star Wars games that are out there right now.
Yeah,
it was KOTOR. Okay, yeah, I don't know about this Eclipse one. Then I think it's PS6. I think it's very pretty looking, but I mean that's that's the job of a cinematic trailer is to sell you on the beauty of the game.
Yeah,
it would be wild to see Quantum Dream skip a whole generation because
their last game was Detroit,
which was a PS4 game. So it would be wild to see them skip a whole generation, but it depends. Detroit was very well received and I sold well and all that stuff. So if they're taking that and being like, okay, we've always kind of done our own IP with Heavy Rain and Beyond and all that stuff. Like we need to go huge with Star Wars. Then I could see them giving this all the time it needs to cook.
And the last one I wanted to bring up, one that I believe is a PlayStation 6 game, is the next Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Which we just know it's being made. And we've seen some art of like Laura's new look, right?
Yeah, that one's not part of the Luddington verse, right? Like this is a whole new Lara Croft.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see them waiting till the next generation.
And I think it's fine too. Right now, there's a bevy of like action adventure kind of exploration games right now, and so I think it's fine for them to wait and get this next version of Laura right. Not to say the Ludding verse, the last generation was bad by any means. I loved Rise of the Tomb Raider.
People love
it was
those
very
games.
well received, and they're great. So, but I think because they are moving on, that means I feel like there's even more pressure because they're moving on. That means they have to. It has to be even better than that because it's not like they were bad games and people are just like hungry for a good Tomb Raider. We got 3 good Tomb Raider games, 2 very good ones, and a third one that was just kind of good.
Still good,
in my opinion.
Shadows,
Shadows. So I think there's a little bit more pressure on there, especially because Shadows wasn't received as well. So now they're like, okay, how do we capture that lightning in the bottle that we had for the first 2 games and build upon it.
I think as far as iconic video game characters go, like Lara Croft is pretty up there with something like Master Chief, right? And so it's like both of these properties, I think of them in a sense where it's like we need to let them have time to do a big re-reveal, right? We don't want to just hear about the next Halo. That needs to be an event, especially, them changing engines and all that stuff from Slipstream to Unreal 5. And so it's like, it's kind of the same with Lara Croft. Like, we need to wait. We need to give them time to cook. And then, like, that is going to be a huge E3 level kind of moment where it's like, she's back. And so I could picture them taking a little bit of time with that. Though Shadow of the Tomb Raider is pretty old at this point. That game's a few years old, so
2018 I believe. So
so you would think that they would be ready, but we'll wait. Crystal Dynamics went through some weird stuff, so who knows.
Well,
I'm patient.
They've got Perfect Dark coming, which I do believe will be an Xbox Series X game.
Oh yeah, I think that's next year for sure.
Yeah. There's one you didn't mention that I thought of,
which one?
Daemon, and that was the Marvel The Rise of Hydra which is like
yeah,
the
yeah,
Captain
yeah.
America, Black
Yeah.
Panther.
Mm-hmm.
That one, I think that's I bring it up because I think that is going to be PS6. I
You think
because
so?
I think so. I mean,
I
they've
think
shown a
I
little
think it's
bit of
this
it.
year. I think
This
Really?
year.
I've been weirdly
Wow.
convinced that game's coming this year. You're talking about the Amy Hennig one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been weirdly convinced that it's this year. I don't know. I feel like it's this year or next year.
I mean, I would love to be proven wrong on this one. I would love to, because this has really got my interest peaked on
Yeah,
it, just because
yeah.
I love the characters,
Mhm.
and it's just it's just I haven't seen enough to
Sure. Yeah, just
these-
this very like super cinematic trailer. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think Mark's right. That after talking about all these games, I think in general games are just they're revealed way too early.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be left years and years and years waiting for a game that looks good, right?
No, I agree. We have the unknowns that are like probably going to happen. Like we mentioned, Spider-Man 3. We've not heard anything about it, but it's coming. Horizon 3, like the way Horizon 2 ended, you know that there's going to be a third one.
Yep.
We've heard tons of rumors about Uncharted 5, but that would be way out. So yeah, I don't know. PS6 is shaping up to be a decent generation, hopefully.
Well, yeah. Lots of these games look really cool. I mean, the PS5 is 5 years old now.
Yeah.
So it'll be 7 years
Insane
old
to
in
say.
2027. So I don't know. I think the PS4 lasted, it was like 7 years. So it was 2013.
It's 7 years, yeah.
7 years exactly. So if
I think
history repeats
I think
itself.
the theory is that PS5 is a 2027 is right on the nose as far as when the next generation will begin. Well, I mean, who knows? Xbox may go sooner. We'll see.
Okay, before we wrap this up, we have the results of last week's poll. We asked, what series would you like to see return on Nintendo Switch 2? What long dormant Nintendo series? Your options were F-Zero, Punch-Out, Animal Crossing, Kid Icarus, and Mario Paint. We threw that on there because of the seemingly mouse-like features of the new Joy-Con. Would make Mario Paint relevant again. But the winner was F-Zero. F-Zero with 36% of the vote. I was surprised by that. I thought for sure Animal Crossing would win, but Animal Crossing came right in the middle. Animal Crossing was beat by Punch-Out, which I'm not mad about. I'm just surprised.
I feel like Animal Crossing's a given. Man, I probably would have voted for F-Zero because I love F-Zero. And so I'd love it's a dormant franchise at this point. So I would love to see a new F-Zero game.
Only 5% wanted Mario Paint back.
Ouch! Come on. That's because they're all too young. They didn't understand the Fly Swatter game and how good it was.
That is true. That is true. Okay, thank you to both Jada and Mark. This is a very last-minute episode that came together. This episode of Next Gen Console Watch was produced by yours truly, Damon Hatfield and Jobert Atienza. Technical direction is by Jobert Atienza, with technical production by Marian Franzen and Amir Rakib. Audio engineering is handled by Amir Rakib. Post-production editing is by Jobert Atienza, and graphic design is by Justin Vachon. Next Gen Console Watch is an IGN production and part of the Geek Media Network. Now over on the Ox Venture podcast, which is also part of Geek Media, the Weird West returns in Season 2 of Ox Venture Deadlands. After overcoming impossible odds, the characters are now running a monster hunting agency for hire, but when supernatural forces threaten one of their posse, it sets in motion a whole new adventure. They may not all survive. Ox Venture Deadlands is a rip-roaring horror comedy perfect for fans of D&D or anyone who wants to get into tabletop RPGs but doesn't know where to start. Search Ox Venture, that's OXVENTURE on YouTube or your podcast app of choice. That's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you both, Jada and Mark. Thank you to Jobert, Amir, and everyone working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Damon. We'll be back next week, and it will be a great episode next week. It's going to be a Nintendo Switch 2 episode. So actually, Jada, can you join us next week for that?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Live casting.
All right. Live casting. Please be excited. We'll see you next week for much more on the Nintendo Switch 2.